Today's story is called The Lame Dad Chronicles, The Legend of Lame Dad, an origin story.
It started, as these things often do, with Dad doing something completely, utterly lame. "Kids," Dad called from the kitchen, "come witness greatness." Ellie and Jake shuffled in, mid-eye roll, to find Dad proudly holding up a stack of pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. He was wearing an apron that read Grill Sergeant and a chef's hat made of foil. "Behold," he declared, "prehistoric breakfast artistry." Ellie groaned. "Dad, you're the lamest person I know." And Jake nodded. "You've always been lame, Dad." Dad gasped, clutching his chest as though they'd just insulted his entire lineage. "Always? Kids, I wasn't always like this." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "I'm pretty sure you were." "Oh no," Dad said, flopping in a chair with dramatic flair. "You think I just emerged from the womb telling puns and wearing socks with sandals? No. There was a time when I was normal." Jake snorted. "Define normal." "Normal," Dad said firmly, "like anyone else. But every legend has an origin, and mine began with a single life-changing event." Ellie folded her arms. "Let me guess. This is one of your over-the-top stories?" "Oh, it's more than a story," Dad said, leaning forward. "It's his story. Sit down, kids. It's time you learned the truth about how I became Lame Dad." The before times. "Before you two came along, I had it all," Dad began, staring wistfully into the distance. "A sporty car, a closet full of stylish shirts that I actually ironed, and hobbies like frisbee golf and competitive trivia. I was a legend on my softball team and the reigning champion of the neighborhood barbecue cook-off." Ellie rolled her eyes. "Sure you were." Dad ignored her. "And then, one fateful day, everything changed. Your mom went into labor, and I, thinking I could handle anything, became a dad. But nothing could prepare me for the incident." Jake frowned. "What incident?" Dad's expression darkened. "The diaper disaster of '08, or as I call it, the Poonami." The Poonami. Dad took a deep breath, settling into his chair like a war veteran recounting the horrors of battle. "You two were just 3 months old. Your mom had gone out to run errands, leaving me alone with you both for the first time. I thought, how hard could it be? I've managed entire fantasy football drafts." Jake snorted. "Big mistake." "Oh, huge mistake," Dad agreed. "At first, everything was fine. You were sleeping like angels. I was sipping coffee, watching a rerun of Matlock, feeling pretty good about myself. And then," he paused for dramatic effect, "it began." Ellie leaned forward despite herself. "What happened?" Dad's voice dropped to a whisper. "Ellie, you just woke up." A small whimper, a tiny sniffle. I thought, easy fix, just a quick diaper change, and we're good. "Was it not easy?" Jake asked, smirking. "Oh, it was simple enough," Dad said. "But it was only the beginning, because as soon as I finished, Jake, you woke up, and your diaper—" Dad paused, shuddering. "It was like Pandora's box, but smellier." Ellie gagged. "Gross, Dad." "No," Dad said firmly. "Gross doesn't even begin to describe it. There were levels to this, layers of chaos. I unfastened the diaper, and it was like a horror movie in slow motion. The smell hit first, and then the eruption." Jake laughed. "You're making this up." "I wish I were," Dad said, pointing a finger for emphasis. "It was everywhere. The couch, the wall, somehow the ceiling. I was a man drowning in a tidal wave of poo disaster. I reached for the wipes, but they were gone. I looked for reinforcements, but Ellie, you had spit up on the only clean towel." Ellie burst out laughing. "No way!" "Oh, yes," Dad said gravely. "I was outnumbered, outmatched, and out of paper towels. There I was, knee-deep in the Poonami, thinking, this is it. This is how I go." The epiphany. "And then something happened," Dad said, his tone softening. "Something magical." Ellie frowned. "What, did Mom come home?" "No," Dad said. "I made a noise. Not just any noise. A ridiculous, high-pitched squeak of desperation. Ah! And you two, you laughed." Jake blinked. "We laughed?" "Not just laughed," Dad said. You cackled. It was the first time I'd heard either of you laugh, and it was the most glorious sound I'd ever heard. In that moment, I realized something profound. I couldn't control the chaos, but I could make you laugh through it. Ellie tilted her head and leaned forward. And that helped? More than you'll ever know, Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. In that moment, I stopped caring about being cool. I stopped worrying about how I looked or whether I was doing everything right. All I cared about was keeping you two happy, even if it meant being ridiculous. Jake grinned. So you became lame. No, Dad said, standing tall. I became lame dad. Because being lame is how dads show they care. It's how we say, you matter more to me than looking cool. The transformation. And from that day on, Dad continued, I leaned into the lame. I made up silly songs about vegetables. I wore socks with sandals because it made you giggle. I turned bedtime stories into epic adventures with voices and sound effects. And every time you rolled your eyes or groaned, I knew I was doing my job. Ellie crossed her arms. So you're saying you chose this? Absolutely, Dad said proudly. Because one day when you have kids of your own, you'll realize that being lame isn't a flaw. It's a superpower. Ellie and Jake stared at him, their faces a mix of exasperation and amusement. You're still the lamest person I know, Ellie said, smirking. But maybe, Jake added, you're not the worst. Dad grinned, his eyes twinkling. I'll take it. Now, who's ready for a Punami reenactment? Dad! They groaned, bursting into laughter. And so, the legend of Lame Dad lived on, one over-the-top story at a time. The end.
Dad!